And welcome back to another episode of What's in Your Cup. I am, again, your host, John.
And I'm Mike.
Our lovely bartender who has come back from hiatus. Welcome back.
Happy to be here.
So, you didn't see last episode yet, right? Or did you?
I've seen parts of it.
So, did you see the part where we said we were going to fire you and Mark from the show?
I took that very personally.
Yeah, so apparently, not yet. I still need you here.
Yes. And I also remember a comment you made earlier on how you can't have me gone because the other bartender, Alyssa, you said that she might actually try to kill you.
Yeah,
and I took offense to that because that's implying I won't also try to kill you, which is patently false.
But she'll do it for pleasure.
I feel like
you
for pleasure.
You'll do it for pleasure. I feel like you do it by accident. She do
I
it
must
solely.
even more offended now.
She would do it solely for pleasure. You would do it on accident.
Believe me, I enjoy every second of this. I know
Wow.
I know how strong my drinks are.
Wow, if I didn't have any reason to fire you yet, it would be right now.
When you finish your drink today, you'll fire me. Don't worry.
Nah, but I'm just kidding. Thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
So for this episode, it's just going to be myself and Mike. Unfortunately, Alyssa is busy with family, and Mark is also has something to do with family. So, but
Our families don't like us very much.
Sometimes two can be better than three or four, you know? But if there was any this is my perfect I should just fire Mark right now. This should be the perfect reason because he already missed 2 episodes in a row.
But who's going to go on like history tangents that lead somewhat off topic?
I could just Google half the shit he talks about and then just make
But we
up
won't.
I don't know half as much as he does, but I can easily pretend like I know half as much as he does.
Since we're the only voice in the podcast, whatever we say is fact. There's no fact checkers here.
Exactly.
History is there we make it.
No one to like interrupt us mid-sentence, be like, disclaimer, that's not true.
Yes.
Or also, that's just a joke. Just a joke. Please don't cancel us. Not sponsored. Not sponsored.
Truth is a suggestion, not necessarily something we have to subscribe to.
Yeah, sometimes it's okay to be wrong if it's
Yes.
funny.
Exactly. History is only true if it's funny.
If it's funny.
And if it backs up whatever argument we're trying to make.
Exactly.
History is a tool and it's malleable.
It's written by the victors.
Yes.
Which are us tonight.
Yes,
We are the victors.
There is no one here to oppose us.
It's amazing. So I'm going to say, let's move on to our drinks for tonight. I'm seeing a lovely tall glass. Bro, it looks like straight whiskey.
Possibly.
I'm like, you made this one pretty fast.
I did.
I was getting everything set up, and then in like 5 minutes, you already came downstairs. I'm like, and then because we had dinner earlier, and then you were like, oh yeah, I should probably get some garnishes. There's no garnish on this glass.
Yeah, I decided that only 2 of us don't gotta bring the big guns.
Wow.
I tried to impress Mark and Alyssa.
but not me.
Not you.
Why? What's wrong with me?
Nothing. You're already impressed.
You know what? Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm just glad. I'm more
As long
impressed.
as it's booze, you're impressed.
I'm just impressed that you agreed to like come here and help us with the show, which I again extremely appreciate
Flattered.
and love it.
Appreciated.
All right.
Cheers.
So, well, I'm not going to drink it just yet. I'm going to explain what it looks like. Right now, it's a tall glass. It looks like a nice whiskey with 2 ice cubes in it. That's about it. But usually when you have like whiskey on the rocks, it's like barely a quarter of the glass. This one's the entire glass. So not much. I can't give too much more description than that. But
I don't know. Can it be on the rocks if it's just 2 ice cubes?
yeah, but like usually when they serve it, it comes out like a quarter of the glass up with the 2 ice cubes in it. So and you filled it all the way to the top, which I don't mind. I like whiskey.
Don't worry. I'm not going to give you an entire cup of just whiskey.
Yeah, you say that now. Now you say that, and then like 5 minutes later, you'd be like, "Oh, psych! It's just straight whiskey, bro.
As a bartender, I do not lie.
The full 45% right down your throat." All right. But cheers, bro.
Cheers.
That does taste really good. Well, I like whiskey, like I said before.
So, do you have anything you suspect of this?
I mean, there's obviously whiskey in this.
You're correct. There is whiskey in
There's
that.
obviously whiskey in this, but it's not just whiskey, right?
Not just whiskey.
Okay, you hesitated for a minute. I'm wondering. It does taste good though. You always make
Thank you.
You always make good drinks, so I will give you that.
If you do it every day, might as well be good at it is my motto.
Oh, that's strong. Oh, thank you. You see now I can easily tell that there's whiskey in this because you put more of it.
Yes.
See, I've been complaining the last couple episodes. Be like, I can't taste what alcohol is in here.
Don't worry, you'll be sure to taste it this time.
Yeah, I can taste it this time, and it tastes like whiskey.
Yes.
And it's very delicious. Can I try to guess the brand you used,
Yes.
or is that going to be a lot harder for me?
It's gonna be a little tricky. It's not it's not a big brand.
Is it? It's not a big brand. Okay. It's not Fireball.
Absolutely not.
Because
we're over 19.
Because I know you don't. I know we don't like Fireball, even though it's not a bad whiskey.
It's a bad whiskey.
No, it's not a bad whiskey. It's an easy whiskey.
I never get ID'd. I only get ID'd when I buy Fireball because, like, hey, only 19-year-olds buy it. What are you doing?
Well, yeah, that's why, because it's easy to drink compared to the other ones.
I don't know. I basically see Fireball as just like cinnamon challenging yourself.
It's a good mixer, though.
It's a good mixer. It's good if you disguise what it is. Like, it's only good in the context where you overpower it so much you have no idea what it is.
So I'm going to say, I don't think it's Jack Daniels.
It is not Jack Daniels.
Is it Jim Beam?
You got it?
Yeah. All right. Hell yeah. I know my... Compared to the other alcohol.
John knows his whiskey.
I know my whiskey, and it's Jim Beam. All right. See? I'm smart.
Nice.
I'm smart. Nobody believes me, but I am smart. Anyway, it's Jim Beam whiskey. I'm going to say... If it's not just Jim Beam
It is not just Jim Beam whiskey. There's at least one more alcohol in there.
there's one more alcohol.
At least
in here.
one more.
I can't smell anything. Well, I can smell the whiskey. I can't smell the other alcohol. I think.
Whiskey tends to overpower whatever surrounds it.
And you brought everything yourself, right? You didn't use anything in my house.
Didn't say that.
You didn't say that? So there's also a chance of gin or vodka.
And remember, the name of the drink is something that is meant to tie into today's topic.
To tie into the what?
Today's topic.
Today's topic. Ooh.
Which we haven't covered yet, I believe.
We didn't say what the topic of today was. Damn, this is giving me a hard time. At least I got the whiskey. I'm proud of myself for that one.
I think it'll be very difficult to miss that there's whiskey in this. Although the brand is impressive.
I will say... I'm stumped. What is it?
And if this is a hint, your dad also enjoyed it.
My dad enjoys it.
Yes.
Is there vodka in this?
What do you think?
I'm going to say yes.
No.
Damn. My dad is a gin person, but is there gin in this?
Do you believe there is?
Yes?
No. There is
Fuck.
no gin in this.
Okay. Then what else? What else do I have?
I never said that I took alcohol from your house.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Fuck it. I'm stumped. What is it?
The liquor in there is triple sec.
It's triple sec. Yeah, I can't tell if something has triple sec in it. I've never had just triple sec. So it's triple sec whiskey.
I will not share more because I'll be spoiling the name of the drink.
Oh, no.
I want to give you some more time to guess. We can come back to it later.
Triple sec whiskey. It's an old fashioned.
Yes.
Yes. Fuck it. Yes. I'm going to give myself some hand clap. Yeah, it's an old fashioned. Okay, I recognize it now.
Yes.
I've only had an old fashioned a couple times, but this is a very good old fashioned.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Is this the first time I've actually guessed one right?
I believe
4
so.
episodes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats.
All right.
And without the help of Mark and Alyssa.
Yeah.
Although I've seen Mark and Alyssa drag you down tangents.
Yeah,
I've seen
screw
them,
those
like,
guys.
overthink it and say, actually, this explosion-looking drink, I think that's Barbie.
No, but like we tried way too hard trying to think about that.
Yes. Remember, the bartender is not a job that requires a deep knowledge of history.
But
it just requires liking booze.
yeah, and good mixing skills, which you do have.
Thank you.
So it's an old fashioned. Thank you so much. I finally got it. It tastes really good. Appreciate it.
And
All
the
right.
reason I chose Old Fashioned for today is because we are going to be discussing pop music and basically comparing today's music to music in the past. And I know my friend John is a rather old-fashioned guy.
You do like a good then versus now
Yes.
kind of feed, which I'm going to love because I grew up on a lot of old rock music,
I grew up on Fergie.
which I which I enjoy a lot. So yeah, I think this would be a really good comparison. What do you want to start with? Like, do you have a genre in mind, or do you just how things are?
We'll make our general argument start. Like, I'm going to make a case that I don't think music is any better back in the day than it is today.
You think that it's just music?
Music is music, and here's the crux of my argument, is that I believe that when people look back at music, they essentially just have hindsight bias, where they could remember the good and forget the bad and forgettable. that when people talk about music from the past, they only really talk about the ones that stand the test of time.
Right.
That there is just as much bad music back then as there is in the modern era. But the issue is we get to see the bad music today in full force because we're living through it.
Mm-hmm.
However, no one remembers the bad songs from the 80s. They are all left in like the dustbin history unless they're like really memorable. And in that case, people still have like fond nostalgia for it.
Right. Or like the most of like the 80s music you hear on like 101.1 CBS, where they played just the 80s hits for 2 hours straight. Yeah. And that's where all the popular ones come from.
Exactly. And a lot of them aren't even like really hits. Like they pull cult classics and put them in the mix. If you pulled the best songs that got released in the recent memory and you compare them to just like the biggest hits of the 80s, I believe that the best stuff of nowadays is probably better than the biggest stuff back then. Even though the best stuff back then is more comparable to the best stuff today.
Interesting. I think the rules have changed a lot.
They have.
For music over the years, and like genres have switched out a lot since like the late 70s, early 80s. But when you listen to music from back then, like I think lyrics are very different. Obviously, like beats are extremely different, but lyrics were very different because they weren't allowed to say certain things at the time period. When today you can practically say whatever you want and get away with it.
And I think getting rid of like the censorship put forth by big business is a good thing.
But also it takes away from certain creativities.
I don't know.
Because some of the best songs like have like catchy lyrics to it that like when you really read them over without the music playing, you realize that they're like double entendres for like either like violence or sexual activity or things like that.
You mean back in the like 60s, 70s, 80s or today?
I think like no, like 60s, 70s, 80s. Like
that is pretty cool. I do love that.
Like a lot of the stuff had double entendres in it.
Turns out the Beatles wanted to do more than Hold Your Hand.
Yeah. Lucy in the Sky wasn't just a woman in the sky.
Yeah, Future would have just said whatever he was doing that day.
Yeah, that's what. And then you listen to like Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion.
Iconic.
And then like before they had to like hide certain things when they were saying that. And then now today it's just like you get to say whatever the fuck you want.
I don't know. I think it's good that people are like less squeamish about the kind of thing that art has always been like. Art doesn't always portray the best of us. That there's a reason like the biggest movies and shows are like full of like gun-toting gangsters and all that.
Yeah.
People like to see something edgy. People like seeing something that maybe doesn't reflect in everyday life. Like people don't live like Walter White or Cardi B, but through art they could, experience it vicariously.
Yeah, they can believe that they are, or at least pretend that they are for like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yes.
I think that at least one of my opinions is that writing styles need to, I feel like it's decreased a little bit.
I don't know if I agree.
Like people either in pop music, rap music, hip hop music, which is like more popular nowadays, is like a lot of the themes are very similar. A lot of the lyrics are very similar. It's just that the beats are kind of, some of the beats are very similar. They just like change them around a little bit. And also I noticed there's a lot of sampling. And then like I look back at even some songs from like the 80s and 90s had samples or were just covers of songs from the 50s and 60s. That surprised me a lot how much of it there is.
Sampling is something that does genuinely bother me. I see it as like a fall of creativity a little bit.
Yeah.
Although if I could like defend sampling a little bit, is that essentially there's only so many orders you could arrange notes in for it to be catchy and well put together. And if someone's sampling a song from like 20, 30, 40 years ago, that sample's already stood the test of time. That sample's already beloved, it works. Versus trying a new melody or a new idea for themselves, always more financial risk. And there's only so many ways to put notes around that eventually we're going to run out of new melodies. Because there's only a piano scale has 13 or so notes. And you could put those notes in, as many orders, we could pause them a little bit, but eventually there is like a mathematical end to how many notes you could put in a certain order and make it sound good. And the increase in samples as of late is a sign of that the writers are struggling. And this also ties into like the Disney, these are less excusable, but Disney is currently remaking all of their old movies. And the reason they're doing it is because they make a ton of money for much less work.
Right.
And the reason for that is because all the money, like, it's already a proven like financial winner to do it. And it's the same thing for samples. That it's just the market's doing its thing, which is a flaw with the markets. But ultimately the consumers are the ones who keep buying it, even if I think it's personally lazy and not up to standards. Like, I very much wish there was more originality in the media today.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, do you think that it's to call themselves like creative by sampling someone else's music? I don't, like, in my opinion, that's not fully creative. Same way that like when like film companies remake their classic movies into like live action or anything else that they do with it, to say that it's like a creative new take on something, it's not really. It's the same character. It's just you change like one or two different things and then put them in a modern day setting. It's not really a new idea.
It's not. I think that the remakes have been like probably the worst thing about movies in the last several years.
Yeah.
That ultimately, with music, it's different because there's only so many melodies you can put together in music, but you can make a new movie much easier. Like, I get there's only so many stories out there. How most movies follow like the hero's journey to rise and fall, the climax, and there's only so many stories you could tell. But I don't think we ran out just yet, and it's just more or less them cashing in on what was very popular in the past. Because nostalgia is the strongest drug there is. That people love thinking about their childhoods as they work their 9 to 5, and all those remakes, is what's bringing the money in, because parents take their kids to see like The Little Mermaid or The Lion King because they grew up on it.
Yeah.
Which,
they already know that
a lot
it's
of money. It gives parents the happy feeling. So there's no real victim except for the kids.
Yeah, they already know.
I think that we're being denied a lot of good news stories.
Yeah, they already know that this is like a banger that's gonna work. It works on nostalgia while also like getting the appeal of a younger crowd. But then I think I noticed that a lot of, I guess, do you notice like Gen Z complaining a lot more about things like this, or more about like the older generations, like Gen X complaining about like sampling or unoriginal music or simple, or like titles being not titles, or like lyrics be rewritten over and over again?
I'd say there's a lot of like people complaining on all generations about this, that every time you go on YouTube there's like 14-year-olds commenting how much they miss real music. I don't think this
really?
kind of oh yeah, totally. It's like always the most upvoted comment saying, I wish I was born in the wrong generation. Like, although
I wish I was born in the wrong generation.
I wish I was born in the right generation.
In the right generation. Damn, I don't hear that. I don't think a 14-year-old would say that.
I said a 14. I was like the biggest pretentious. Like when I was like 14 years old, listening to the Beatles, feeling so proud of myself.
Damn.
But anyway, about sampling, like.
Yeah.
Sampling, I'm willing to defend a little more. Like, I think a lot of great music has been sampled. Because sampling, when it's done right, is you take a little piece of a song from back in the day and you recontextualize it into a new thing that's all together. Like, for example, this AJR song, like, they're not a particularly great band, but I do respect love they do with samples. Okay. How they took a old Frank Sinatra song from 90 years ago, and in the closing part of that song, it wasn't Frank Sinatra, it was like someone in the Frank Sinatra era, and the 40s, 50s, all that.
Yeah, like that Rat Pack group, like Dean Martin and everybody else.
Yes. And the song ends, that song from the 40s ends with a little trumpet solo that goes on, a fade out that goes on for like 5 seconds. And they took that 5-second fade out and they transformed it into like the main crux of the song, which exposed many people to like an excellent melody from an obscure song 100 years ago that no one ever heard. And they made it into a completely different genre. It went from like old ragtime pop to modern like synth pop. They completely recontextualized the trumpet. The song I'm talking about is Way Less Sad, by the way. And what they did is
Way Less Sad.
That's the one, yes. It's that sample you hear in that song. Okay. It was based on a song from 80 years ago that was very obscure, that no one heard, and they basically found out, oh, this is a really catchy riff that no one hears. And I think it's good that they're exposing it to the world. And I think it's good that they like, you would never like mistake one for the other. Like, you could hear both songs and you would not associate unless you try to look really closely.
And you have to credit each sample.
Totally,
right?
Yeah. It's why a lot of these songs have like 15, 16 writing credits, because you got to.
That's
everyone
crazy.
who wrote the old song gets credited on a new song.
But that's crazy though. You can't sample that many times and then call yourself an artist, in my opinion.
I don't know. I'd say like if you recontextualize enough, like, there's definitely bad sampling.
Yeah, but if one song has that many samples on it, or if like,
oh no, it's one sample.
It's just one sample.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like that whole song has like 16 different pieces in it.
Oh no, I mean the song has
or like that album has 16 different.
I'm assuming like all albums nowadays have samples. Like, especially, I'm not sure if you know about the Robin Thicke lawsuit that happened a few years back.
Was that with I know about the blurred lines?
Yes, that's what I'm talking
yeah.
about. How when that happened,
Wasn't that just because it was like sexual content?
No.
Something like that?
that was the underlying reason. Like, people despise
okay.
Robin Thicke, that he's known as like a cheater in the real world. He's basically, people call blurred lines like kind of blurry on the consent, if you will, a lot of lyrics.
Okay.
Which is like in discourse from 10 years ago. I don't really want to engage in too much nowadays. Let's not get canceled this early.
Okay.
But essentially what that did was, I forgot who it was, Marvin Gaye sued him, and he won.
Sued Robin Thicke.
Yes. And it was for a vibe, quote unquote, because in an interview, Thicke said that Blurred Lines was inspired by that song.
Inspired by the song.
And by not even the song, it was inspired by his whole vibe. And he used that comment to sue Thicke. And he won a lot of money.
Oh, wow.
And people suspect, especially me, that the lawsuit only went the way it did. It was because people just do not like Robin Thicke. That it was more of a referendum on Thicke himself than the actual like copyright law. But the issue is that that precedent essentially made copyright a lot stricter when it came to music. So it's a lot easier to sue people now. Like, for example, Taylor Swift now has a writing credit on like a couple of Olivia Rodrigo songs, which in my opinion was kind of like pushing it. Like, the songs weren't similar, but because the vibes, quote unquote, were similar, that was enough to get like, because inspiration, because Rodrigo said interview that Taylor inspired this. That was enough to get a writing credit to not get sued, because they were worried about the Thicke lawsuit, that the precedent that was set by it.
So basically, lesson to be learned: don't talk about who inspires you.
Basically, which I think is kind of effed up. Like,
yeah, because then they'll just take advantage of you.
yeah, like that essentially messed up copyright law basically forever, unless there's like another lawsuit that walks it back.
So just be like, I'm a creative individual. I came up with this all by myself.
Yep.
I'm smart. I know exactly what I'm doing. When really it's just to avoid a lawsuit.
Yes. And that essentially is why there are so many writing credits nowadays. It's a big reason.
That's very
Because
interesting.
they're so afraid of getting sued. Because if someone sues you, essentially what you have to do is you have to sign over a percentage of the song. And they can decide what percentage is fair. Like, they can say, I want half of it.
Bro.
Even if they just, inspired a quote-unquote vibe.
Now that you say that, I feel like people talk about a lot of times with film and TV, how like crazy it is being sued or canceled through that. Like, music is just as tough.
Yeah.
Like, those contract-wise percentages, and then how quickly you can be like, you can have something, go wrong just from saying a couple of words, or like trying to get another artist involved.
Yeah.
And then, like, obviously much more about the industry than I do, but how does it work with, I want to say, like, studio companies that like give you a chance to make an album with them? Do you know what deals they make with their talent or anything like that?
It really depends, like, how much like clout you have, who you sign. I think every artist is a different story, but generally a lot of times people get hits by accident, that they release something, they're not expecting it to go anywhere, and suddenly someone picks it up on TikTok, does a dance to it, biggest song in the country. Happened to Lil Nas X, and basically they offer you a lot of money, you sign on, and they own your rights. Like, do you remember that Panda song from like 10 years ago?
Like Panda.
That's the one,
like yeah. That was a big meme song for a long time.
Designer owns like 3% of the rights to that song.
That's crazy.
Every dollar that song gets, he gets like 2 cents, because he signed early. That he had a big song. He was a 17-year-old.
That's crazy.
The record labels are just like any industry; they're vultures.
Yeah, that's insane. I think also it was Designer, and I think Lil Yachty had a song like that went viral because from the internet.
Yeah.
Then what's that song? The Kiki, Do You Love Me song?
That's Drake. Drake is massive and has been massive.
Wasn't it a Drake song that like you get out from the car door and then you do like a dance in front of the door?
Those viral challenges, yeah.
Was that the same song I'm thinking of? Or
yes,
was
that's
it
the
somebody
song.
Else? Okay.
Although I'd argue that was a little more calculated. That was Drake paying a dancer to do that.
Oh,
I don't know if it ever came out officially, but that's like the main rumor, that he had these like influencers with millions of followers do these trends and let it catch on inorganically.
Well, the effect is still kind of the same, though, because
It
it did
is.
start a huge trend that everybody was copying.
Oh, yeah. In music, it's very important to have that kind of thing. How oftentimes the culture around the music makes more of the sale than the actual music. That people try to hop on like discourses and discussion, like Lil Nas X and that Try in a Small Town guy. Both of them essentially tied themselves to larger culture wars to boost their song. So you believe that music back in the day was more creative than today?
I think that music back in the day was more creative because they had to be more creative. I think the censorship for them was a lot stronger than it was. Like film and TV in that period, after the Hays Code in '68, I think that's when it was abolished. They artists were allowed to kind of do everything with film and TV. So that's why you had like these like gritty, like the '70s into the '80s was like this gritty, dark period where you can kind of film whatever you want, as graphic as you want. And
those were the good days.
And then, like, don't get me wrong, the '70s to the '80s were one of my it's probably my favorite time period for films because you have a lot of artistic stuff, but then you also get like not schlock, but you get a lot of like
camp
exploitation films.
True.
Especially when it comes to like anything with like an extreme use of like violence, sexual content, nudity, racism, sexism. Like it's heavily taken advantage of during that time period, and then they label it as like just as a form of artistic subjectivity, when in reality it's just exploitation. And then you had a lot of rip-offs at the same way, like films, like especially I think overseas people, like in Europe and in Asia, they took a lot of the like movies that came out that were popular in America and they made their own like rip-offs there. Like I think there was like Mad Max rip-offs, there was like Lethal Weapon rip-offs, a couple of horror movie rip-offs that happened like I think in a couple of European countries, that kind of thing. And it was very easy to market that kind of stuff because then that like people overseas would market their movies with American stage names to make it seem like it's an American production. When if you do your research, you go on anywhere online to try to find it, the origins happen overseas, and then it makes them some money, and they call like, well, we had like the inspiration to do this. It's kind of just a carbon copy.
Rip-offs were always a thing that people always knew, like back in the day and even today, that it's always a safer bet to like cash in on something already successful than try to take a risk on your own.
Yeah,
like,
but then it gets labeled as artistic subject, like it's just subjective to the viewer when it's clearly a ripoff.
Totally.
And then you're not going to understand that it is a ripoff unless you've seen the original content and where it's coming from. Then you notice it from there. But then again, you have to watch like so much just to really get it, and then figure it out. Like, oh, that's where this thing came from, and then it pops up like so randomly nowadays.
So where does the line between ripoff and inspiration blur? Because I do believe there's a line. Like, for example, back like in 2018, Spider-Verse, that film, has been extremely influential on media, on children's media nowadays. How a lot of them try to like get the really out there, not totally realistic, but overly artistic art style.
Is it because of that art style, like that comic book art style they have in the movie? Like
movies like Puss in Boots 2 and that
Good point.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Like, where does it go from rip-off to inspiration? Because I think that's like a clear example of inspiration, not being rip-off.
No, I definitely count that as inspiration. Like having like that kind of style in the background for what you're creating, that I would see as an inspiration, or like just a commonly used style, which is fine. Rip-off, when it gets to rip-off territory or exploitation territory, is when it's a clear carbon copy of something else. And it's like the character design is exactly the same as something from a movie that came out a year beforehand.
I get that.
Or if a scene was shot exactly the same way, or a plot line is exactly the same way. It just happens to have like a few key differences that make it seem like it's not the same, when it really is. And I think there was one of them that I used to watch a while back. I forgot the name of it. I forgot the European name of it. You ever seen, I think it was called Escape from New York. It was one of those John Carpenter movies.
I don't think I have.
He's the guy who came up with the Halloween franchise. He was like, I think he was the original screenwriter for that.
Yeah.
He did the screenwriting. I think he did the music for it as well. And then after the success of Halloween, he went on to go do a bunch of other movies that had like their own style to it. And one of them was called Escape from New York, where I think Kurt Russell played as a character named Snake. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm not getting this movie. Anyway, he's like the cool character, has an eye patch. I think he has like a robot arm or something. No, not robot arm. I think he carries around a gun with him or something like that. If you see the picture of the character, it's very noticeable.
For sure.
And then I remember seeing this European ripoff because I used to watch a lot of I still do. I watch a lot of like movie reviews on YouTube and things like that.
I love those.
And while I was looking at this one, I watched a video pop up like, oh, right in your recommended feed, and it was of a European ripoff of it. That was I'm forgetting the name of it, but actually I'm gonna look that up right now. Keep talking for a second. But yeah, it was a complete ripoff. I think the main character's name was like Viper instead of Snake, like that kind of thing.
That's shameless right there. At least try a little harder than that.
Let me look this up real quick. Just keep talking for a second.
All right. Yeah, generally, like, all successful movies have, like, a span of ripoffs. I know Star Wars inspired a lot of sci-fi movies and that back in the day. I know The Hunger Games, especially, is probably the biggest one of the 2010s, where it basically spawned a whole, like, genre of young adult books into action movies that were, like, meant for teenagers and all that. And that's also blurring the line for me between ripoff and... Like, the movie wouldn't have existed without the other one, although the plots aren't really similar enough to call it that.
So the movie I was thinking of, it's called 2019 After the Fall of New York. You ever heard of this?
I have not.
It is an Italian knockoff of Escape from New York. It was a cash-in 1983, which 2 years after Escape from New York came out.
Just 2 years.
And it's exactly the same. Like, the character wears like a leather jacket. They escape from this like apocalyptic scenario. I think they're trying to survive like this radiation that killed everybody. Similar in style to it. It's like a shameless carbon copy, even though like they make enough changes to it where it looks different enough, but it's still the same. So do you call that creative?
No.
Not really. It's not really creative. It's just
they wanted to cash in. They wanted to get some of the money that movie was getting.
Yeah, it's cashing in on something that was extremely popular, and then just, but when you do it overseas, they're not as aware of it as Americans are.
A lot of it, though, I will say, comes down to the consumer. If I go back to a more modern example, Pixar and Disney, they routinely release remakes and sequels of their older movies, their most beloved ones from like the 2000s and 90s. And whenever they release them, it always sells several times better than like the original movies. That I think that all the biggest Disney movies currently, if you go at box office and box office alone, are remakes. Right. That I think the new Lion King sold a lot more than the original one because it was already beloved. It already had the original Lion King had to like earn every view itself, but had no nostalgia to bank on. While this one had the force of nostalgia, having many generations come to theaters. And you have to ask yourself after a while, like, if these movies keep making so much money, if people love that New York movie to the point where they'll see it again just 2 years later. Yeah. At that point, is it really like on the studio, or can we blame the consumer a bit? If the consumers are the ones who are like buying these remakes and buying these sequels at much higher rates, I do believe it's bad for creativity, it's bad for the industry, but ultimately, isn't it just like the free-handed market, the invisible hand of the free market doing its thing?
But why aren't the production companies coming up with content that can sell as well as the remakes?
Well, they have been releasing content, and the problem is people are flocking.
They release new stuff all the time, but it's just constantly flopping. Like, it's not.
That's the audience, though.
It's not capturing the same sense with the audience as the earlier stuff.
That I agree.
I mean, I haven't really watched a lot of those new stuff just because
they're not worth watching. Don't worry.
Like, I'm not watching kids' movies anymore, so I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with just change, like trying to adapt to a new generation and everything else, and doing a very poor job of it. Like, remember, like these old kids movies had adult writers.
They did,
right? Like, they would make a lot of innuendos, a lot of dark jokes that like kids didn't understand, but the adults certainly did.
This goes back to what I said about music earlier. How the best stuff survived the test of time. The best stuff was to remember 30 years later. Right. Like, there were a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s, kids movies, that are just like god awful, that we don't remember because there's no reason to rewatch it, there's no reason to think about it. So it is comparing the best of the 80s to just whatever's popular today, which is always going to make the 80s and 90s come out on top. If you compare the cream of the crop to just like generic stuff that just happened to be popular this week. Right. Which is why the remakes keep happening, because they get to remake the best of the 80s versus taking a chance at something new. Like, there are beloved movies that are coming out nowadays for kids, like Spider-Verse, all that. Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of iconic moments like 30, 40 years ago. Like, you watch something like Rambo or Commando or something like that. Like, it feels like so iconic because it's so out there. And like one guy able to take down an army of men. Like it's made in a certain way where it's not supposed to be super realistic. You know, it's still like entertainment factor. And then now there's like an added realism, a sense of like the overuse, especially the overuse of the anti-hero.
Yeah.
There's no like good guy and bad guy anymore. Now there's like there has to be like an explanation for the person's actions.
I don't know. I love anti-heroes.
Well, yeah, it's more realistic to have an anti-hero, but back in the 80s, that wasn't a problem. It was just like they just wanted to see Arnold shoot down a crap ton of bad guys in less than 5 seconds.
Let me drop a hot take that's probably going to get me canceled.
Dude, you sure you want to finish that statement?
I am positive.
Okay.
Yes. Anti-heroes are needed. Like, in the original Star Wars trilogy.
No, I agree with you. I think
like,
they're needed.
Luke Skywalker, boring as hell. Like, the guy is just white toast. Like that's like there's a reason that when I think back in the day when they polled kids on who their favorite Star Wars character is, everybody said Han Solo because Han was just he had like a gray streak. Like he
was the cool
he
one.
was the gangster running from the cops shooting people.
Yeah,
that's why people loved him. And then if you don't have, I love that they now have moral grayness, that the heroes aren't all good and the villains aren't all bad. I think that's how it should be. That makes the most compelling stories.
Yeah, but don't if you're going to do that, you still have to make an interesting character though.
Totally, yeah.
Like you can't just they do bad things. Like they're good people that do bad things. I can understand that. They still have to be interesting characters.
Oh, totally.
They can't just be like a normal person doing bad things. They still need to look interesting. They still need to sound interesting. They still need to like have an appeal to them.
Definitely. But I think that it's very difficult. I'm not gonna say impossible because there's so much out there that I haven't seen, but I think it's extremely difficult to make a character that's 100% good and interesting. That you need to have at least a little line of like moral ambiguity in there to make a character really, really engaging.
That's how it was in the Golden Age. Like there wasn't a lot of anti-heroes. It was just like, no, this person is the good guy, does all and his actions are justified.
Yes.
And then today it's more like, no, there's a lot more like reasons behind it. Not a lot of it is good. Not a lot of it is bad. And I think if we're going to look at one person that definitely has like good characters, at least, whether you enjoy his movies or not, is Quentin Tarantino.
He has good movies.
Like his, I think I was reading somewhere that he first begins with establishing his characters first, like who they are, like giving them like their appeal, their style, where you can clearly tell that this is like, and then he works the movie around these characters.
Yeah. And
any movie that he watched, you remember these people because of who they are and how he's able to portray them.
That's the way you do it. You ever watch the Red Letter Media reviews of Star Wars?
I have, yeah.
That's like I think the most. Like, when you said you watch reviews of movies, I was like, yeah, you've definitely watched.
I've definitely watched.
You've definitely spent 4 hours watching those. Absolutely. I certainly have. And I think a really like engaging point he makes about the Phantom Menace, but that all the characters were just defined by the jobs they did or roles in the movie versus actual personality traits. And I think what Tarantino does is brilliant, like trying to make it so that the characters stand on their own before there's even a plot. Mm-hmm. That for a movie to remember, it has to have characters you remember.
You know the movie Bullet Train that came
I've heard
out,
of it, I haven't watched it.
Ago? My parents loved that movie. And then I walked in on them watching it like towards the last 15 minutes of it. And it looked pretty good. Like every character had like a unique, distinct style to them, like what they were wearing or how they acted, which is pretty cool. It's a crazy fucked up ending where like everything just gets destroyed. The bullet train they're on completely derails an entire town and kills everybody.
Ooh.
And
I have a downer ending.
Like it's pretty funny, but
as a comedy.
I think it's like a comedy action movie. It's like it's got Brad Pitt as the main guy, the main agent. I think.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Reynolds is in it at the end, which is pretty funny. I gotta see the rest of it, but it's like that's one of those new movies that like focuses on its characters. Like, yeah, they're all on a bullet train, they're all trying to kill each other, but they're very distinct, and you can tell which one is which instead of just getting lost in the same comparability.
Yeah.
And then like same thing, and then like to apply that to music, it's hard to make distinctions when people kind of make music about the same topics over and over again.
I don't know. I think
just a different beat to it. I don't know. I think the things I notice is like when you're singing about like how, you know, good you are at something, or like how I'm partying, I'm making money, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. or if it's or when you're making a song about like a girl that you didn't fall in love with, or like didn't fall in love with you.
Music has always been like limited. You only have 3 minutes. You can only sing about strong emotions.
That's not true. You can go past the 3-minute mark.
I know, but most people don't. And when they do, it's usually just guitars and all that.
I also have a theory about that. Why nobody goes to the 3-minute mark anymore?
I have one too.
I think that I think it's purely done specifically for business reasons.
It is.
Like on Spotify, like when you have Spotify Premium, and you're like, oh man, that song was pretty short. Let me just replay it again. And then it just keeps adding more plays to the song
That's part
over
of
and
it.
over again.
The other big one is something called like stream trolling, where essentially on Spotify, no one buys albums anymore unless you're over 50. That essentially everyone just streams.
I don't know. Vinyls are coming back a little bit.
Vinyls exist only that's like collector's items. Like people don't just throw on vinyls for the sake of it. I mean, maybe some people do, but generally vinyls are for a collection.
If you meet that one hipster that's like, yo, I got a banger for you, and he pops out the vinyl.
I was that guy for a month. I have regrets.
I'm not going to joke on you on that because, I do have vinyls in my house. I like them. I don't use them, but I like them.
But anyway, like back then, like they make songs short and they make albums long. Like right now, there's like artists releasing albums that are 30 songs, 40 songs long. And the reason for it is because that on streaming, you get more money the more people stream your songs. If you release an album with a lot of songs, that gives you more money. Like an album with in the age of streaming, an album with 20 songs is going to make twice as much money as this album with 10 songs.
Interesting.
And also for longer and shorter songs. Someone listens to a 3-minute song, someone listens to a 10-minute song. Both of them give you the same amount of money. So if you could like split up your songs, like I know off the top of my head, a big person who did this, may rest in peace, XXXTentacion, he released like 25-minute albums with 20 songs. And those are like a minute songs, minute 20 songs. So you can listen to the whole album in 30 minutes and you heard 20 songs, which versus a song like Bohemian Rhapsody, which is like 9 minutes and it's just one song. In the streaming era,
I think it's more like 6 minutes.
More like 6 minutes, yeah. That kind of song would be less likely to be made today because it wouldn't be as successful because people aren't streaming it. And people aren't streaming it, that people giving that one stream versus if they made that into 3 songs, they'll get 3 times as much money.
Interesting.
Yeah, streaming has had like a massive impact on music in general.
Yeah.
That for a long time, people had like music, how people listen to it changes every day. Like for up until like the mid 2000s, there were 2 ways people heard radio. They either bought the album or they heard it on radio. But nowadays, people don't really buy albums and people listen to radio much less. Radio still exists. But people who listen to radio and buy albums used to be everyone, but now it's mostly people over 40. Because people our age, younger, mostly do streaming that they mostly just listen to on Spotify. So that actually has like a massive impact on a lot of things. Like for example, Gangnam Style from back in the day?
Yeah.
That song was the second biggest song according to Billboard because back then they only measured album sales, single sales, and radio. That song was massive because of YouTube, and ever since then they counted YouTube. But people change to hear music every day. So now artists are releasing, more complex music videos, like try to make people watch the video because that also encourages streaming, or they put like a little skit at the end of the video to make people want to see the video because that counts for streaming. And nowadays with Apple Music, Spotify, they're changing the songs. Like they're releasing a lot of remixes. Like some songs nowadays have like 10 remixes. That's in order to get more streams because the more remixes you have, the more
or like some have separate features on them.
Yes, remix those features.
Yeah.
Like the person who like best gamed the system was Lil Nas X back in 2019 with Old Town Road. That's an excellent song.
He started with a meme and then made something of himself.
That he essentially released like 7 remixes. Like the song was number 1.
Really? There's that many?
Yes, there's a lot.
Oh my god!
And the song was number 1 for 16 weeks. Or I think it might be like 18 or 19 weeks. I have to look it up.
That's
but
crazy.
It became the longest running number 1 hit of all time. Because the song on its natural, it would have been number 1 for 1 week. It would have faded. But then, after it became a number 1 hit, he dropped one with Billy Ray Cyrus, which stayed on top for several weeks. And when he gets to the numbers...
Wait. The Billy Ray Cyrus version wasn't the original?
No, it wasn't.
Really?
Nope.
That's interesting. That was the first version I heard, so I thought that was the...
That was the biggest version.
That's really funny.
And then after 10 weeks, he was worried he was going to lose a number 1 spot to Taylor Swift or Billie Eilish because they both had singles. So what he did was he released a version with one of Alyssa's K-pop guys, and he released one with
I think I know
all
what you're
that.
talking about.
I think with the yodeling Walmart kid from a while ago, he
No,
released a yes,
come
he did.
on.
That kid was on a remix. It slapped.
Oh my god!
So
I can't.
and the song became the longest running number one because whenever it started to lose stream, he just dropped a remix. He had like 10 remixes ready to go, and he just kept dropping them and stayed number one for like almost 20 weeks.
So it really is just all about the business.
It's astroturfed, yeah.
Just business.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have a favorite song?
There's a lot of good answers to that. Like my favorite song tends to change like every week.
Mm-hmm.
Like this week, I've been listening to a lot of "Live from the Gutter" by Drake and Future.
Live from the Gutter?
Yes,
I haven't heard of that.
it's a banger. It's off a album from like 2016.
Okay.
How about you? I'm assuming it's something a little more dignified.
So my favorite song, I think for the longest time, my favorite song was because I heard it in Goodfellas. Do you know the song Layla?
I do.
I think it's by Derek and the Dominoes.
That's a really good one.
So that became my favorite song just because of the movie. And then I heard there was a version of it from I think Eric Clapton was the first one that did that song. Because I'm pretty sure he came out before Derek and the Dominoes. But there's an acoustic version on MTV's Live and Unplugged. Do you remember that?
I know what it is.
Yeah, he did a version on there. It was like an acoustic version that's a lot more mellow, which actually sounds really nice.
I really do love, like, if we could tie back what we talked about earlier with remakes, like, a lot of the older songs were like covers and redos too. But like when you talk about how the acoustic version like mellowed out the song and put in a whole new context, like I think that's an example of like a remake doing good.
Right.
When you have a different experience from what the original one had.
A lot of my music that I listen to is definitely over 3 minutes long because they're like old rock songs.
Yeah, they always make time for a guitar solo.
Anything for me, like I love a nice guitar riff.
Me too.
Or a guitar solo on anything. So then I'll pull up a lot of like Led Zeppelin. I'll pull up Jimi Hendrix.
Do you have a favorite solo?
Favorite solo? None that I can think of off the top of my head. But I think there was one. Is the Freebird thing a solo?
Yeah.
As well, the Freebird song.
That's a solo.
That is a really good solo.
That is a good solo.
And it just works so well.
There's a reason it's like the most requested song.
That's the song you play like when you're driving at like 75 miles per hour down the highway, and you're just like.
I've been to
just
karaoke
bucking
before.
it all the way across.
Yeah, this might get me in a bit of hot water, but I think
No, please. No hot water yet.
it's just a little bit of.
Is it a hot
controversy.
take? Is it one of Alyssa's hot takes?
It's not too hot, but it might be hot in the current climate.
It's lukewarm.
Yeah, fine. I think like
I have a lukewarm take right now.
I really love genre blending. I love like when you mix rock with hip hop, rock with country.
Wait, who?
Yeah, what?
Who?
Oh, I love when you mix like different genres, like rock and country, rock and hip hop. Like I think. Like,
No, is there like a person that you said?
Kanye. I think on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, his 2010 album, like a lot of the stuff on that album with Mike Dean. Because Mike Dean is like a famous hip hop producer that he put a lot of guitar solos on the 2010 album that like really hit.
I'm not a fan of Kanye's writing at all.
He has his moments.
Like what?
Okay,
Can you, please be specific.
I don't know if I want to go into a long monologue on why Kanye is good, actually. But if I can say, like, one of his songs in the 2002 Late Registration album was something like, you know how you talk about how rappers like tend to stay on like certain topics, like hip hop. Like Kanye is very critical of hip hop at times, which blessing and a curse. And he made a song about how people brag about their diamonds, people brag about their jewelry, but he made a song about how it's made, about how every jewelry you have on your hand or your neck was mined by like some child in Africa who gets their hands blown off in mines.
Threw a little bit of politics into the lyrics a bit.
No, Kanye's older work has genuinely very good lyrics.
I'll give it to his beats in the early albums.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he had good beats and everything, but like I did a lot of the writing halfway through. I'd say not the early albums. Like I think the albums later on were not very good at all.
Totally. Kanye's last really good album was like 2010.
Like what was that song? Like I just fucked this model and she bleached her asshole.
That was
if I get bleach on my t-shirt, I'm an asshole or something like that.
He's listening. He's
I'm like,
talking
bro,
about the
that's
importance of keeping his
horrible.
clothes clean.
That's horrible.
So would you rather he like?
I just started laughing. I heard that, and I think that was one of the meme songs too that became
Yes.
big on like Vine or
That was a
TikTok.
Vine hit, yeah.
And then I'm just laughing like, you actually wrote that and you
Yeah.
you produced that. Somebody in that studio had to sit there and be like, yeah, that's good, bro. You're doing a good job.
When artists get big enough, no one tells them no, which can lead to some great art. Like
that,
a lot of
that
Bowie's,
leads to a lot of problems
Yeah.
though. Like you should have somebody there that tells you no, that's a
I
bad
agree.
idea.
But a lot of like Bowie's really good stuff has people who should have told him no, but didn't, and wound up with great music.
A lot of Bowie stuff.
Yeah, like a lot of older like experimental stuff. Like the Suits always say no to anything risque or out there because they want the guaranteed hit. But that leads to innovation. Although I don't know if we needed the bleached asshole innovation. Maybe that innovation could have been.
We didn't need that.
Maybe
that
that could have stayed like on the cutting room floor.
I think there was also a line in one of the songs. He's like, I'm about to like space travel and I'm gonna make it to Uranus. When he's talking about
That was
girl.
iconic.
He's talking about a girl.
Yes.
It just makes me laugh because that's such a bad line.
All Kanye was doing was talking about our need to like explore space. He was advocating for basically the
I'll make
universe
it
is
to
massive. We gotta know
Uranus.
more of it.
It's pronounced Uranus,
Exactly.
not Uranus. We're not like in 8th grade anymore.
Not for lack of trying. Well, maybe we are not. Kanye might be. Oh God! I turned into a Kanye podcast. That's not what I wanted.
No, it's not. We're not turning into that. I think what's one thing that I've been listening to a lot? Like I don't have Spotify Premium, so I use the daily mixes all the time. Or like if I go to the gym, I'll play like a power workout or something like that. I've been listening to like any like hit songs or like new ones I listen to from the daily mixes.
How are they?
Not bad. I'd say the daily mixes pick out good songs.
Yeah.
I'd say. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
See, I did it once. I did that for Alyssa.
I, for one, am very sponsored. I'm getting Pride by like 10 people.
Yes.
I have checks coming in the mail later today. It's how I buy the whiskey.
It's just 1 penny.
Yes. It's like, okay, your show has like 100 listeners. We'll give you like $1.
Nice. We'll be generous. We'll give you $1.
Yeah.
Not 95 cents. We'll give you a full $1.
Yes. And if you mention us 10 times, we'll give you enough to get just one cocktail.
Since we talked about like mixing like stuff from old stuff like do you think did you listen to that new Logic song that came out a little while ago, Self-Medication?
I don't think I did. Let me pull up the lyrics.
It's it's him, I think, Redman and Seth MacFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane
From Family Guy.
He does have a great voice.
He has an amazing voice.
He could like easily release like one of the best albums of all time.
He's been Grammy nominated like 5 or 6 times.
I know. I think he was on a Christmas album.
That is crazy. Like, because obviously like I watched a shit ton of Family Guy
Me too.
when I was growing up, and then anytime like any of those like songs
They're
that
good.
sound like Sinatra, that's him.
I know.
And I didn't realize that was him until like I was much older.
Yeah.
He's got an incredible voice. He's on that song.
You know the star Frozen Mendel?
Um,
Who plays Elsa?
Say the name again. I'm sorry.
I think I forgot her first name. I think it's something with an I. Indeza Menzel. I'm saying it wrong.
I don't know.
The point is, the star of Frozen. The year after Frozen came out, she was the biggest star in the world, and she released a Christmas album.
Mm-hmm.
She could have picked literally any male singer. She could have probably gotten Timberlake. She could have gotten Bieber. She could have gotten any major, massive singer. But for her Christmas album, for the one duet in the album, or one of the few duets in the album, she goes to none other than our man, Seth MacFarlane.
Really?
She picked the Family Guy to sing on her album.
Damn.
And it was great.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And make no mistake, like, Frozen was like a massive movie. She had her pick of the entire industry.
That was a massive movie.
That was
one
an
of like
inspired choice.
that was a massive movie. That one song, and
Yeah.
then that song about want to build a snowman or some shit. Wasn't that also a sample?
Was it? I wouldn't know if it was.
I feel like that. I read somewhere that that's a sample.
I wouldn't surprise me, but this brings back to what I said, that there's only so many good melodies out there that
Yeah,
eventually, and maybe even like 100 years from now, we're gonna run out of melodies. Sampling is
will.
just like, I'm not sure if you know sample law. Like, I occasionally dabble in songwriting, so I follow that pretty closely.
Mm-hmm.
That you have, the rule is that on sheet music you have to have at least, if there are 7 notes that are shared, it counts as their work.
It counts as their work.
If it's 6 notes in a row, you're not stealing, but if it's 7 notes, you are.
That's really difficult. Then you could, because then you could like unconsciously come up with something that sounds exactly the same.
I would argue that a lot of these lawsuits come from that, where someone heard a song 10 years ago, it's in the back of their head. It suddenly comes to them, they feel inspired, but they don't know they're stealing. I do believe that we need to like heavily reform music copyright law. Like it's way too, especially after the Robin Thicke case.
Yeah,
it's just way too tight.
Damn.
I would expand to like 11 or 12 notes.
Especially online, like you can't even play like more than like a second of 5 or 6 seconds of a song without getting copyrighted.
Yeah, it's mostly just due to like silence critics.
Unless you like bass boost it and then or slow it down like by
flip it upside down
or something like that, just for the sake of a joke.
Yeah,
I definitely recommend Self-Medication. That's a good song.
Oh, I self-medicate all the time.
Self-medicate while listening to Self-Medication.
There we go.
Because Seth MacFarlane has a very good piece in that. That became like a meme later on.
I'm gonna look it up on the way home. Like I didn't know I think Seth MacFarlane has to drop an album soon.
Like I feel like he has. He's probably done.
He's done like Family Guy themed albums, but
he's probably done like Christmas albums.
He's done Christmas albums,
or he's probably done like remakes of like the Rat Pack's music, something like that. Like if you made him do like Frank Sinatra songs, he sounds almost exactly the same.
He does. Like I would love to see him on Broadway.
That's fun because he went from I think his like didn't he start by like drawing for Johnny Bravo?
Yeah.
And now he's a Grammy nominated singer, producer, and everything else. That's
Hear me out. Family Guy, the Broadway musical.
Family Guy, the Broadway musical.
That would be great.
That would be great.
And we just have Seth MacFarlane playing like his main 3 roles.
No, he plays every character.
Every character, okay.
He has to jump. It's like one of those like one man shows where he has to jump back and forth. He puts on a hat to play Chris. He puts on like a chin prosthetic to be Quagmire.
And how would he do cutaway gags?
The stage crew just comes out with like a sheet, like brings it over and then it brings it outside.
Perfect.
to the next scene.
What do you think it'd be about? I like what the Simpson movie did, where it just put like a giant bubble over the town.
Probably something about Peter like replicating something he saw in a movie and then getting the family in trouble.
That sounds about right.
Like the Bob's Burgers did something similar to the Simpsons movie.
Yes.
Where like I think it wasn't the whole town, but it was like something about like the family gets in trouble or something like that, and then they have to prove it.
Yes.
Whoever no, didn't somebody get murdered?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they have to prove it before they lose their restaurant.
Yeah. I think Peter should accidentally break copyright law.
He's just like
he should accidentally break music copyright. Like he made a song and it has the same 7 notes as a different song that was released 500 years ago, and he has to fight that in the courts.
Well, he does more with film and TV than he does music.
He only branches out.
He branches out just for the
musical. To give Seth MacFarlane the excuse to do more musical numbers.
And he has to. So then when he's singing, he has to jump back and forth between each character, right?
Yes, and he has to like time travel so he could do duet with Brian.
Mm-hmm. There's just 2 of him there.
Yeah.
And then to play Brian, he has to get in a dog costume.
Yes, we gotta invent cloning for this. Like we have to come up with cloning and then make this movie.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a fourth wall. There's a fourth wall break where the actual Seth MacFarlane comes in. And he's like, "Who the hell are you?" He's like, "I'm Peter Griffin. Who are you?" "I'm Seth MacFarlane."
Yes.
He's like, "I made you. How are you real?"
I think they made that exact joke in like season 17.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
I think I stopped watching after the 14th season.
That's like 6 seasons too late.
Yeah. I have to get back into it, but
no, you don't. Don't worry.
No, really.
You're not missing anything.
Oh damn.
I didn't watch the whole series, but I have like watched like videos of people talking about like season 15, 16. Looks really bad.
It looks really bad.
I think like they're trying to go for a younger audience now. Because they
no.
realized all their fans are 14. A lot of shows are like The Fairly Odd Parents. Also, for example, they stopped.
The Fairly Odd Parents has been on way too long.
Oh, it ended finally. 10 seasons in.
Yeah, now it ended.
Yeah.
Give it like another year, they'll bring it back.
Like a lot of shows go for like after a while their original audience grows up and stops watching them, so they have to appeal to a new audience.
Mm-hmm.
So like SpongeBob and The Fairly Odd Parents, both of these shows, what they did was instead of appealing to 10-year-olds, they started like writing to appeal to like 3 and 4-year-olds. They've made colors brighter, made the characters like simpler and more rounded, changed a bit of the animation to be faster.
What kind of 3 or 4-year-olds watching Family Guy?
Not Family Guy. Family Guy went down to like, but other thing. when SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents went down from 10-year-olds to like 4-year-olds, that 10-year-old market opened up.
Yeah, but
Like there's so many plots of like Stewie just going to daycare and all that.
oh yeah, there's too many fourth wall breaks.
Oh
in
yes,
my
no,
opinion, where they acknowledge that this is just a TV show.
that if a
And,
TV, I think that if a
But
show,
they know that they're a TV show on Fox.
yeah, I think fourth wall breaks are a sign a show has to end.
Yeah.
That if it's like once a season, it works, and I like it a lot when it's
But they
like
do it every
coveted.
episode. They do it every single
Yes.
episode that I
And
noticed.
And I think there are smart ways and there are dumb ways to break the fourth wall. Like, BoJack Horseman broke the wall and they're pretty smart. If you watch that show,
I've seen the first 2 seasons.
those are. I'm pretty sure this was like the season 2 finale or season 3. I know it was season 3 finale.
Okay.
And what happened? I think that's a clever way because if it works in universe, that's something that what characters would say. But the audience realizes to break the fourth wall joke. I think the crux is if the characters realize they're breaking the fourth wall, that makes it not funny. But if the characters are breaking the fourth wall in a way that they wouldn't realize otherwise, that makes it like a less clever, in my opinion.
When Family Guy breaks the fourth wall,
It's the worst.
it's the worst because they just do it. One, they do it way too many times.
Every episode.
They do it every single episode, and then it just makes it seem like they don't want to write any good stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and then because one appeal about the show was that they always reference something from a show, another show or a program years ago, and now it's more like they're trying to make up their own jokes, which the writers were never down with. The writers always reference something, and like the cutaway would feature like a character from like the 80s and then just make fun of it by doing something incredibly stupid.
You ever watched Cartoon Wars, that South Park episode?
Isn't that the episode where they go to like Imagination Land?
Yeah, with the whales.
And then there's like a bunch of, and then a terrorist breaks into Imagination Land and starts killing everybody.
We might have different episodes. I'm talking about the one where Cartman tries to get an episode of Family Guy pulled.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
Yeah,
But
that.
there's a whole episode about when they go to Imagination Land, and it's just every character that's ever been created. But then a group of terrorists invade Imagination Land.
The 2000s are wild.
Yeah, but they were funny. But again, like you're not gonna have that anymore because of just changing in culture and like all the PC stuff and whatever else. They can't go that hard anymore. It's just not a thing.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna get sued by somebody or whatever it is.
I don't know. I think that a lot of these shows like age a little more. Like, I think they realize that they have audiences that are like less receptive to this kind of thing, and it's market forces they're just connecting to.
Yeah, but like this generation's still very young though, and they're trying to market towards them.
Yeah.
Like, why not market towards the older crowd?
I mean, the older crowd, for the most part, is not watching Family Guy anymore. That the older crowd had a Family Guy phase 10 years ago.
They're not watching it anymore because they changed it. It's just not the same style anymore.
I think the chicken came first, that before the egg in that case, where essentially they had like an off season, so they tried to change it to get a bigger audience. The shows only really like change the formula when they're struggling for the most part. And they're trying to reach a new market. Like TikTok, for example, was a big thing that made a lot of these shows shoot younger. Because people love posting episodes of TV shows on TikTok, and those go viral.
I think South Park did like a thing where the characters have TikTok videos.
Yeah.
They make TikTok videos of their own.
South Park seems to be shooting for younger audience too, when I've been watching it recently.
Yeah, they're nowhere near as crazy. Like, I watched every season.
My condolences.
It was funny for the most part. I'm pretty sure my IQ level went down a little bit. But jokes aside, it was a very funny show. And then now it's like it's too close to home because they're talking about topics that are like way too relevant right now. And then people don't want to talk about those
South Park has always been like a direct political satire.
They were, but they were also making fun of things from way back in the past, or making it in such a hysterical way that it was insane. Like it had nothing to do with actual politics. Now it's a lot more direct.
I don't know. I think South Park was always pretty direct. Like their most famous episodes were like about climate change, about gay marriage back when it was controversial in 2000s. That South Park was always like a direct political satire. I would argue it's more right now because they're worse at it now. That they're just less funny than they were 20 years ago.
Yeah, no,
and
they're way more direct. They're way more direct now.
How is it more direct?
It's just not as funny.
I don't know, like they
It's
had
way-
George. It is less funny, correct? But they had like George W. Bush as like a recurring character back then.
Yeah.
It was wackier, I guess.
Yeah, but it was a lot wackier where every situation was insane. And then now it's more like, okay, this could actually happen.
More grounded. Yeah,
It's
I
a
get
lot more
that.
grounded. And then when it's more grounded and political, it's not as funny because then you're like, oh, wow, this is just like what's happening in real life. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I want to watch TV to escape real life. Or I want to listen to music or check out different arts because I want to escape real life. That's the whole point. Like, don't drag me back into
Yeah.
real life. Like I did my 9 to 5 today. Let me escape for the next
That's
5
valid. I
hours
get that.
before I go back to bed.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think it'll reach a point where it's all down to the money. Whatever makes the
Yeah.
money. That's really what it is.
That the free-handed market really determines all of these shows. That they're ultimately going to make whatever choice brings them the most profit.
Yeah.
And if it means like dumbing it down, making the show worse, they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, which show do you think can better music, Family Guy or South Park? I think it's no-brainer personally.
I'm gonna go Family Guy.
Easily,
Probably have
yeah.
better songs. Yeah, especially with Seth MacFarlane doing most of
Yeah.
the songs.
Like Trey Parker does not have the voice of an angel.
But their songs were fucking crazy and
They were
funny and
bangers.
shit. Just like
I had Kyle's Mom's a Bitch as a ringtone for a while.
bitch. Or Jacking It in San Diego.
Yes.
That's pretty funny. Do you watch The Simpsons at all?
I watched a good amount of it.
They're in like the season like 30.
At this
something
point, The
like-
Simpsons has to like get off the air soon.
Yeah,
They've
I
told
think
their story already.
It's like again, like the writers are getting tired. It's everything like that. It's
Yeah.
just you can only go so far with a certain show or a certain art, I guess, before people get tired of it and they want something
Definitely.
new. Even for music, I think like a certain style is gonna die out and something new is gonna pop up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where music goes, like how music quickly changes and evolves.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm always excited to see what like generation like Alpha is gonna listen to.
What's the type of music where it's called vibe music? I know that's not the actual genre, but
We're
call
pretty
it
close.
like music to vibe to,
I don't know if Vibe has like a specific
or like
genre.
ambient
yeah.
music. Is that the right term for it?
I think those are adjectives. I'm not sure what it's called, but I know what
Where
you're
it's
talking
more,
about.
where it's more like trying to come up with like
I know a heavy
like
bass
sound something like just a unique sound that like even if it's not directly doing anything, it's more like it just sounds like really good. So then
Yeah,
like the lyrics you could be saying like the same 5 to 10 words over and over again, but it's more about just hearing that beat in the background.
I know. I love that kind of music personally. Like,
Yeah.
I think like lyrics are like in songs like the 7th or 8th most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
That if you have a good bass beat going, you have a good melody going, you have good mix, and that's all you need.
It's all the combination. Like it should be like hard beat, good lyrics. Like don't just focus on one aspect. It has to be all of them combined together, and each point pushes the song further.
I don't know. Like I think that it's possible to like overwrite your songs. Like Eminem has some good songs, but my biggest critique of him is always going to be that if he has a choice between making a well put together song or putting an 8-note rhyme scheme where every syllable rhymes with every syllable of the last sentence, he's always going to overcomplicate it.
Mm-hmm.
That simple, I think simple ideas stick in the head better.
Yeah, like he's trying to show like how good of a rapper he is.
Yeah.
And then like listening to Godzilla, and then having that whole how long was that ending where he's just like he's just rapping as fast as possible.
Godzilla's a perfect example of that because, in my opinion, Juice WRLD like runs away with the show. Like, no one will say Juice WRLD is a better rapper than Eminem, but if you listen to that song, I think he has the better section because he has a good melody, he has a good voice, and that's just a lot more simple and straightforward than Eminem's like quadratic rhymes.
Yeah, like and then when you're rapping that fast, like nobody's following along.
Yeah.
Or at least it's very hard to follow.
It's hard to follow along, yeah. So after this discussion, do you still think that music back in the day was better than this today?
It's a tough call. I think it just changes. It's not. I mean, I should be listening to more of like today's music and what's going on with it, but obviously, it's not my preferred. I didn't grow up with it.
Yeah.
I'm so used to listening to like my parents' like rock music and whatever it is because they used to blast that shit in the car, in the house, and everything like that. So I'm used to listening to songs like that.
I have this obscure artist I think you might like.
Which one?
Have you ever heard of Mrs. Taylor Swift?
Yeah, I'm not gonna become a Swiftie.
Not yet.
I
Not
don't
that,
think
dude.
so. No, I'm not gonna become a Swiftie. I'm good. I like my hard beats, not
Taylor has some hard beats.
like what?
Off the top of my head, Bad Blood.
I knew you were gonna say Bad Blood.
Now, actually, if you want to talk about good beats, like Betty off of Folklore has an excellent instrumental where it has like beautiful harmonica and a very nice guitar melody.
Okay, I think her themes are the things I don't,
I think she's
resonate
more varied
with.
than most artists. That she does have like when people talk about, oh, she just releases breakup songs about her exes.
Yeah,
They're
that's
really-
what I like to joke
They're
about.
really
is,
only referring to like a
her
few
most
songs
popular
back in
song,
2012.
her most popular songs are about relationships,
Well, yeah, it's all artists.
or like falling in love with a boy, or like something like childhood related.
yeah,
And I'm like, I don't resonate with that. I want to hear like rock and roll is like, I don't know, like some Led Zeppelin stuff, or like Black Sabbath. I like Black Sabbath a lot,
they're good.
that kind of stuff. So, and then when I hear that, I'm like, I don't want to get in those feelings. I want like the hard
You
rock,
wanna
like about
thrash,
to, like
not
we're about
think.
to, yeah, we're gonna thrash something or break something. That's more entertaining to me. I like that kind of music.
Yeah.
Are you gonna stick with that genre? The whole.
Oh, I am a massive Swiftie, always will be. I had 4 devices trying to get Era Store tickets. I had my ex-girlfriend's laptop, I had my phone, my laptop, my mother's laptop,
Oh my
all waiting in
God.
queue to get tickets.
I would never.
We did
try.
not get tickets.
Ha!
I know. For whatever it's good, because if I got those tickets and I saw the resale value $20,000 for 4 floor tickets, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe I got steered that badly.
Like, I'm not gonna say that she's not a good musician, not a good singer-songwriter. She's one of the best, of course. I just don't resonate with the themes
Valid.
as often, and like the soft harmony stuff is not my cup of tea. I'm not a big fan of that,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm gonna call it for this episode.
We're
Mike, thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you so much for making great drinks again.
Thanks
I
for
really
having me.
appreciate it. Yeah, this was great. Please stay tuned for the next episode coming up next week. And thank you guys so much. See you next time.
See you next time.